Welcome everybody to Bomber Country.
Welcome back. It feels, let's not say a lifetime, but it's been a while since we've...
Been a minute.
Yeah, we've had a bit on.
Hot minute.
A hot minute, yeah. A bit busy.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's good to have you here, Kayleigh Brewster. Thank you for joining us here on Bomber Country. Just amazing to hear what's happening and what's going on in your world and
what you're achieving.
Yeah,
going from
impact.
strength to strength.
It's phenomenal.
Thank you.
So tell us about what it is that you do in our community and what it's called, how you got started. Just give us some background.
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's an absolute honour to be here. My name's Kayleigh and I'm the CEO of Australian Street Aide Project. We're a local Mackay-based charity, and basically Australian Street Aide Project sounds like some big national corporate name, but it's just us right here. When I first named the charity back in 2019, I thought that, give it a couple of years and we'll be all over Australia, but I was really naive and didn't actually anticipate back then what it would take to build it. So we're not big, we're just here local, and we're better known here as Chances in Mackay.
Yeah.
So what we do is we're a homelessness organisation built to help alleviate the suffering of people who are currently experiencing homelessness and help them to build pathways out of homelessness and into whatever life they want to live. And we do that in so many different ways. It starts with our drop-in centre where people can stop in and they can get a feed, they can have a nap, read a book, watch TV, connect with each other, connect with our staff and volunteers, and get all of those practical needs met. So things that you and I might take for granted, like using a toilet whenever they want to without having to walk for kilometres with all their belongings just to find an open toilet, or getting a drink of water out of the water cooler. They've got tea and coffee facilities there that are available all day long. And there's no limit, cereal, toast, tea and coffee, so they can help themselves. We've got the practical things like charging lockers and storage lockers so they can store their belongings.
All these things that sort of people take for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't realise how much those little things in your own home mean until you don't have them.
And I sort of feel, especially in our world, like in our region, I feel like perhaps people don't understand the gravity of our situation. Like obviously you're on the front line, so you see just the depth of our homelessness scenario. It's quite bad, quite
it's
overwhelming.
Terrible. Yeah.
And I think not to say can put you on the spot and rattle off statistics, but just for our viewers, maybe just elaborate on just how bad it is in this town.
Yeah, absolutely. So we work primarily with people who are rough sleeping, squatting, living in the vehicles or in makeshift campsites, and we see up to 77 people a day walk through our doors.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
And that's since May last year. I think May last year I put out a Facebook post that we'd had one of our highest days ever, and that was 35 people. So you can just see the increase.
Yeah.
And that's not all of our service users. So combined we probably have about 200 to 250 who use our services, but that's just daily numbers because some people might come once or twice a week, some people come every day.
Yeah. And we ever so briefly spoke just before we started to roll, and I said I seen a video, and it was a gentleman just sort of is telling his story, and he sort of touched on, he said in his words, I don't think the general public realises how close perhaps they are, or someone they know, how close they are to becoming, in his situation, or homelessness, or just in a situation
you don't think of it.
Well, I mean, at some point we all perhaps are living outside our means. And then it only takes something so small and minute, and possibly with that, maybe what are some of the misconceptions around, you know, because it's not just the down and out.
No.
No.
For lack of a better, you know, like, not trying to sound rude, but you know, that was a thing of the past. Now it's like just a culmination of unfortunate
Absolutely.
events.
Anybody can
A simple
become
injury, such as something I've
yeah.
experienced,
Yeah.
Yep.
100%.
put you out of a job.
Or out of a job. That's
Absolutely.
Right.
Injury and illness are massive. Disability.
Yes.
We're seeing a lot of people with disabilities who have had a lack of support to either become diagnosed or to maintain their support services. So they've fallen into homelessness. Elderly people who just are being priced out of the rental market at a crazy rate. We've got people from more rural communities like Bowen and Proserpine who there's no services there. So when elderly people, they're trying to apply for rentals online, first of all, doing anything online when you're elderly is really difficult.
Yeah,
and
of course.
it's hard enough for young people sometimes trying to navigate Centrelink or rental online applications and all those things. So they end up struggling and either falling behind in rent or just not being able to apply for new places. Or 30% typically is a real estate will rent to you when when the property is either 30% or less of your total income. So that's not a lot. If you're talking about someone who's on Centrelink receiving about $680 a fortnight, that's less than $200 a fortnight that they've got.
It's that type of, I think, you know, when you're talking about finances, and that just even the cost of living and the prices of life just continually going up and up and up. Obviously, all the other social issues that can happen with your family, like all of that stuff. What really, like, I guess, intrigues me is Kayleigh Brewster. Like, what inspired you to do this? Like, I don't feel like any normal person would do what you've done. You know what I
There's a
mean?
lot of empathy around what, you know, like this is big noise.
But what inspired you to get there?
I've always been a really empathetic person. So if
You
I-
can tell. You can
Yeah.
tell.
You can tell, that's the word. Yeah,
Definitely,
empathy is-
and look, it's not naivety. Some people can sometimes assume it is, and that's okay. But I've seen the very best and the very worst
Yeah.
in people. But the empathy, say like walking past someone in the street experiencing homelessness,
Yeah.
I would think about that for days and days after. I couldn't just let it go. And then I had a few experiences in my life with people who were homeless. So I had a friend or a boyfriend at the time when I was in high school who couldn't go home for various reasons, couldn't go to the youth shelter for his own personal reasons, and then ended up living in a tinny on my driveway for a whole 12 months. And I remember throwing in
Really?
blankets in the winter, and my parents had no idea he was there.
Wow.
So we just snuck him in food, or
Wow.
they had no idea. If they'd known, I'm sure they would have stepped
Probably
in and
now.
helped.
Yeah.
How do you hide someone?
Yeah, he would just come after hours, and I'd have a
Wow.
little blanket in there for him, and he did that rain, hail or shine. And this tinny didn't even have a roof. It was just a open little, I don't know how many meters, but it wasn't very big. And so seeing him struggle, and then there was an old gentleman in Sydney Street when I was working for one of the sports nutrition shops, and he fell over in front of me and broke his leg, and so called the ambulance for him. The ambulance came, and in that time waiting, I got chatting with him and realised he was experiencing homelessness and didn't have anyone that we could call for him. So I thought that was really sad.
Yeah.
And tried to stay connected with him. So what happened to him, he went into hospital, he had surgery on the leg, was released into homelessness again, then got an infection, so then he had the leg amputated, and he was released back into homelessness as an amputee. So following that, he got released again, and he passed away from septicemia that went through his whole body. And he was difficult. He wasn't open to receiving help. A lot of people did try and help him, but in trying to get him that immediate help, like, where can I take him so you can have a shower, so he can have a feed, so that he can
Yeah.
have this immediate practical support. There was nothing around, so that's sort of where I decided that
Yeah.
I wanted to do nursing, and I wanted to get involved with the homelessness sector.
Yeah. So tell us about how the community have responded to the work you've done. People like just jumping on board, or is it hard work getting people engaged? What's been the community's response?
Response and
Yeah.
reaction. Because like one thing I've probably said in an earlier podcast was, there's two things that I like to think about, like our smaller communities, especially in a rural setting. Two things that can happen. One is the waters get tainted and things can sort of go awry very quickly. The other one is we can mend it if we all band together.
Yeah.
We can. So with what you're trying to achieve, have you found perhaps those positive sort of that influx of?
Absolutely. I think
Beautiful.
if we had started this, if I'd started anywhere else, I don't think we'd still be standing. The Mackay community, there's just something really special about how people, they might not always know what to do, but they always want to help. And if you've got a vision and an idea and they can see that it's going to help other people, they jump on board.
Yeah, and we Namaka and I, we've talked about a lot of different things. Obviously, like we're from music backgrounds or things like that. But we've always said Mackay has willing participants.
They do.
Yeah.
We've
They
said it
definitely
time and time again.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful to know. Like especially what you're trying to bring to fruition. People are jumping on board
They are.
Yeah.
because many hands make. What is it?
Make
Light
light
work.
work.
Yeah, come on then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See?
definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's the engagement then with, say, like the business sector, schools, like or education or whatever it might be? How do you find like that business sector or the companies getting involved? Is that like a big thing as well?
It is.
Yeah.
It's huge, really receptive. We have a lot of different community groups who've
Yeah,
been
awesome.
huge parts of what we do.
Yeah.
Our sponsors, our corporate sponsors, like or up until recently, they were the only regular, reliable income source that we actually had. And then we've got, like, for example, the Rotary clubs of Mackay. Every single one of them has stepped in and helped in some capacity, and the country women's associations.
Because these social needs, they're a massive need right across the country, right around the world, obviously, with the things that are going on.
Yeah.
And I've got my wife Vicky here tonight, so first time on the podcast. I'm just going to introduce her. But like Vicky and I, Reconcile Life, the company that we run, I think we wouldn't have the social impact that we do as a business or as an organisation in the community if it wasn't for those corporations getting behind us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, would you say, Vicky, like, as far as the government is concerned, like, there's a lot of funding out there, but again, it's sort of like, how do you get to it? Because there's so many needs.
Yeah.
And if you're just like this small organisation, in South Mackay that's just starting out, and yet you're wanting to address a need that's so massive.
Yeah.
Do you like? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, we look. Government funding was definitely always the aim for us from the start, but we've just the work that we're doing is incredible, and I feel like even from a value for money sense, what we do, it works so effectively, and we keep it relatively low cost, but just finding that right stream that fits what we're doing, because we're not just homelessness, and we're not necessarily housing.
No.
We're a lot more of those social needs, mental health, preventing suicide, preventing crime and rates of hospitalisation. So there's a healthcare aspect. There's drug and alcohol aspect of
Well,
what
they
we
all
do.
go hand in hand,
Yeah.
don't they?
Yeah.
It's almost like one feeds off the other. Perhaps preventative measures, if we start to address these little scenarios and subcultures,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden we're not faced with the bigger, broader scenario, which is the homelessness or the crime.
Well,
or the,
it sort of
It's a
touches on
holistic.
what you were saying before. Like, Vicky, maybe you could talk about this a bit as well. Just touching a bit back on how you know, like you said, people just don't know how close they are
No.
to some sort of
It was actually confronting to hear.
or some sort of, you know, whether it's a breakdown, whether it's of relationships, whether it's a personal health issue, whether it's homelessness. What would you say to people out there, Vicky, who maybe have a perception that, well, it's not me, it's them, it's not this would never happen to me?
Well, I think I became aware of it when I was working in the community sector. That's when I actually came across you some way. I think even way back then, maybe 2020 or...
Yeah, I think it would have been 2020 when we had the cafe. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So definitely, like you were saying, Heath, it's those, you don't know when these things can happen. It can be, I definitely was probably the people I would see, definitely mining people, definitely breakdown of marriages. Like there was that they were on it was like 1 minute they could be walking fine, next minute they're off a cliff.
Yeah.
Didn't even see it coming. So homelessness is one of those things where I think it's not just homelessness, it's such a holistic approach, and I think that's what you were touching on, Kayleigh, is that it's so hard to find funding, that because funding can be so specific.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to get funding for
It's kind of like
specific
targeted at
things.
one need.
Yeah, and it can be so boxed, and whether it's state or federal funding, it's very hard to get something because it is so specific.
Yes.
So if we do funding and you're looking for funding, you've got to try and think and be creative to think, how can we reach that and be able to meet Mackay community needs in that way. And because you're so you're reaching so many different needs as well, it can go across multiple areas. And I think that's the way you can look at it, is that you can be it's not creative as in being deceitful. It's being creative as a way of because people are complex.
Yeah, and you don't want
because
to.
you can't be boxed.
Yeah,
There's
and these
no
situations
way-
don't discriminate. They're
yes.
touching people
You're
from
not boxed.
all different subcultures,
Yes.
all different community spacings, all different
Well, even-
professions. You
Even
know.
Absolutely.
with your work, like what you would hear,
Oh,
right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean, like on a daily,
100%.
about just even scenarios where people are just teetering on the edge, but you wouldn't know it.
No.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And and that's not to sort of detract
No.
from where we're going, but the shop that I created, with it being very much a safe space for blokes to come in and sort of have a yarn and absolutely no judgment, and some of the conversations, people hang around for 10, 15 minutes, especially the new shop that I've created. It's away from the big public eye, and in a back sort of street, and people can come in and sort of unravel,
offload.
if you will.
Yeah.
And the stories you hear, you're just listening, and these people are carrying woes, and they are, unfortunately, through no fault of their own, in situations that could spiral out of control very quickly.
Yeah.
Very quickly. Now, we're talking about, layoffs, or we're talking about, unfortunate scenarios like the demises of a marriage, or, illnesses and deaths and injury, and which, like these things all create to a possible negative outcome. Well, they are all negatives, but I mean, like the scenario could get drastically worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Literally overnight.
So, from where you sit, Kayleigh, in your position in the work that you do, what would you say is needed in the community, or what is needed for people to? Do you think people need more insight? Do you think there's a shift of mindset around some of these things that, what I'm saying? Like,
and we
how do
we
you-
could get into a proactive situation where, if we arm all these people, and in our small community, this is the second part to the water's being tainted, and then and we can fix it. How do we fix it? Do we create this proactive, and how?
How do you see it?
Yeah, for the community perception, or for the people? Sorry, just
Community,
to clarify.
but community's perception.
Yeah. I think in general the community is pretty empathetic with people, and
Yeah,
pretty
great, that's great.
sympathetic.
Yes.
There's always some people who are not, and you sort of go, you could put a lot of energy into trying to get them to come round and see your view, but if they've made up their mind that they don't want to, they probably won't. But in that education space, it's really important that we teach people, firstly, no one is being harder on people experiencing homelessness than they are on themselves. Like
Sure, that's a great point.
Yeah, they are not enjoying it. They're not out there having a good time with no commitments, no financial responsibilities. It's horrendous. It's awful.
That is actually, now that you mention it, I have heard people say that, these people, they're just having a free ride.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'll throw myself under the bus here. Yeah, I'm going to throw myself under the bus, and I will put a disclaimer on it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put a disclaimer on it. My concept and my understanding has drastically changed. Okay, because I've grown up, and I've lived a life.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, I did have a perception of, at some point, these people gave up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would never give up.
Yeah.
At some point, these people gave up. Now that I've grown up, and now that I've seen a lot of things, like I've had different jobs and different circumstances, and I've seen different, how should I say, scenarios. I don't have that same thought. I don't feel like they've given up. I think sometimes, unfortunately, it happens, man.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It happens, and it can happen to anyone.
Yeah.
But when you put somebody who was born with, say, fetal alcohol syndrome or fetal substance syndrome, and then you've got disabilities that haven't been assisted or diagnosed, or you've got traumas from head injuries from either being intentionally or unintentionally hurt as children. You've got that abuse and neglect that's from childhood that's affecting them through their whole life. So when someone goes through a really traumatic experience in childhood, they can actually their brain can stop developing at that point in their life. Yeah. So when you're talking about those people who are more stereotypical homelessness, when a lot of the community thinks of homelessness, they will think of people who have substance use issues or severe mental health issues. It's so much more complex. They didn't 100%. Just wake up. No kid sits in a classroom and goes, I want to grow up and I want to be addicted to drugs and I want to live on the streets.
Yeah. As far as I hear those stories, it's I want to be a fireman, or I want to be a nurse, or I want to be a teacher, or no one says I want to. No.
So I think we like to think that we live in a society where there's equal opportunity, but when you're starting out your life with those sorts of challenges, it's not equal. It can never be equal. So we need to give those people more than someone would need who didn't face those challenges. We need to be more patient. We need to give them more chances, and we need to be more
empathetic. That's the word of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we said it before, and that's
If we want to see real change, that's what we have to do. Because shaming them and putting them down will do absolutely nothing but drive them further into homelessness. And that's what I was saying before. Some people are looking to do that. That's all they want to do. And that's really sad and unfortunate. But for those people who it bothers them and they actually do want change, understanding that is really important, that shaming just doesn't work.
I've got a question. If you have people then who may be thinking that way, like I know that the type of work it requires a certain type of person to do it. Should people just come down to see what you do? Like, is that a good idea? Should they help out, or should they? What do you envisage the future for I guess helping people see the reality of it? What would you suggest?
I think definitely we're quite careful about having people just come down, because it needs to be a safe place for them.
Absolutely.
People coming in, and we don't want them to feel like they're on like an exhibit in a zoo or at a show. They have to feel like it's their daytime home, because it is, and we really promote that. So we do try and not encourage people to come through during open hours, which again is a bit of a barrier, because we want people to see
and understand what it is that you and what you've created also.
Yeah, absolutely.
That safe environment.
So people can volunteer though. They can come down and
definitely.
But they'd have to probably like ring you, or what's the way that they get in touch with you to
on
to
our
be a part of it?
website? So
Yep.
www.chancesmackay.org is our website, and there's a little tab along the top that says Get Involved,
Yes.
and that'll take you to our volunteer form. So definitely, if you're interested to volunteer, fill that out, and we go through them, and then bring people in, and in that trial process, they'll get to see the space and get a feel for it.
And you need more volunteers?
We do. We always need volunteers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not just on the ground volunteers either. People in all areas. So things like social media, accounting, all that sort of out of the box, or the
logistics.
Yeah,
making
the
it
behind
happen.
the scenes. Yeah.
Yeah, making it happen.
So
Definitely.
any skill set can be utilised.
Yeah. A lot of moving pieces inside it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, what's the positive message? I know this has been like a bit of a conversation, that seems really dim and grim.
Well, it's real. It's real.
It's real, but what's the positive message that you'd like to send out to the community?
That we can make a difference. We might not have what we need to give these people housing right now. That is definitely a state government issue. And I always encourage people to lobby the state government to advocate for Mackay for more housing, because we urgently need it. And unfortunately, it's only going to get worse before it gets better. And by the time it gets better, we're going to have had people who've been experiencing chronic homelessness for so many years that their challenges are going to be much more complex. It's not just going to be as simple a solution as now we've got housing here, you're housed. It's going to be a lot.
And it's very
more
much
pressure
across the
on-
board, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think I watched a segment the other night, and it said, I can't remember how they worded it, whether it was Queensland was the epicenter of the homelessness scenario, whether they said Brisbane was the epicenter in Queensland's homeless scenario. But what from the extract that I listened to, what I was hearing and taking from that is this is a very, very widespread issue.
It's huge.
And obviously in each town and each state, you have different cultural scenarios and different, an array of issues which are spawning these scenarios in tent cities, etc. And it's kind of getting out of hand.
It is, yeah. Even in Mackay here, it's getting out of hand. More and more people are coming up to us saying, there's 2 different tent cities in the region, like sort of areas where there's dense population of people experiencing homelessness, and they're pretty full, and they're spreading out more and more. So yeah, on that positive side, sorry, I feel like I went a bit negative there.
That's all right. No, it's real. Though.
It's real.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can make a difference and we can reduce the trauma associated with the homelessness experience and help these people get out of it in a better state than they otherwise would have. And that's probably one of the positives. And also we need to look for more innovative. Like,
That's it.
2 out of 3 anyway. Yeah.
I knew what you were talking
Innovative.
about.
That's it. I can never say that word.
Yeah.
But we need to look at more innovative solutions. It can't just be your typical housing builds now, because we need it way quicker than that.
Because that's sometimes the feeling, though. It's like just throw money at it, it'll go away, and it's like no, you actually have to have a grassroots approach. And I think it's always been that way. It's like if you just build more houses, or if you just throw more money in this program, then it'll stop it. And it's like no, it's people are like robust. They don't just fit in a box.
And especially because it's touching so many different people from so many different demographics, and I feel it because of that, never being able to actually get to the core of when these situations are spawning. You're never really going to stamp it out right now.
And times
and a house and getting housing or getting that doesn't matter if you're not fixing the root of all these circumstances and scenarios that we're feeling within community.
Because that's what I'm saying. Like times are changing. Like when I was 18, which wasn't long ago. It was only
No, 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, obviously the younger generation and their mindset, you know, and we've talked about that already, but I just think, you know, yourself, I know this might seem like a cliche sort of question, but if you could go back to the young Kayleigh Brewster, inexperienced Kayleigh Brewster, what advice would you give her? Like, have a serious conversation. What 2 or 3 points would you give her?
I'd probably tell her that Rome wasn't built in a day, because I have this real, I have ADHD, and I do definitely hyperfocus a lot, and that's been an absolute blessing in so many ways. But for me personally, it's taken its toll on my physical and mental health over the years. So I would definitely say to, you know, maybe keep your ambition, but it doesn't all have to be done tomorrow.
Yeah.
That'd be one thing. And learn to delegate, which is something I've always struggled with. It's not something where I'm like, oh, I don't want anyone else to have control of that. I need control of everything. I'm not a controlling person at all, but I felt this real responsibility, like I created this. I should have to do all this hard stuff.
Yeah, it's your baby.
But didn't want to pass the hard things on to someone else for them to have to do. But looking back, if I'd started doing that a lot earlier, it would have been beneficial for me and the organisation. So.
It's kind of like an occupational hazard of an entrepreneur, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like I'm just going to do all of it. I'm just going to do it all by myself.
Yeah. That's it. That's it.
Why isn't anybody helping me?
Yeah, meanwhile, there's like been 50 people in the past that have offered help or, I've got to sort back. Yeah, that's because you just lifted it all by yourself.
So typical.
Yeah.
So I would say that, because self-care is something I always struggle with. I just don't take enough downtime, and I always have a feeling that I need to be doing something. Otherwise, I think I feel, you know, lazy, or like have that feeling I should be doing something. That's really hard to shake. So
the feeling that something's not being done. Because you aren't doing anything. But like, you know, it doesn't mean the world's going to collapse.
No.
Or your creation is going to stop.
Well, it was even like tonight. You just turned up here like so early. I didn't even know you were here. You were already here. I was like, oh, she's here already.
Yeah, we were still having a feed out the back.
Sorry.
How do you? This is probably my question now, because of exactly what I've been going through. How do you work through that part of yourself, thinking you have to do something instead of resting? So you don't burn out.
I don't do it very effectively at the moment. It's something I'm still working on. The only time I feel I can really switch off is when I've got like a true crime podcast or something that I'm completely
sink your teeth in something to get your mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is hard. And then I end up feeling so burnt out that by the time I put my kids to bed, because I've got young kids, I've got a 12 and an 8-year-old, or nearly 8 next week. But by the time I've got them to bed, my brain, I still need sort of 3-4 hours to just wind down. So I'll then sit and watch TV and get 4 or 5 hours sleep. So I'm probably not the best person to ask about the self-care side of things, but it's a work in progress, and I know I can see the areas I need to improve on.
Yes.
And I feel like I'm getting better.
Growth.
Yeah.
Personal growth.
Yeah.
Kayleigh Brewster, Australian Street Aide Project.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, certainly has, and shining a light on not only what you do and your project does, but also the situation that's we're faced with in our little patch of paradise that we call Mackay.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate your support and letting me come on, and hopefully we'll get to a point where we're not needed anymore. That's our aim, to be not needed in this community. So
amen to that.
Would be amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you everybody for watching.
See you next time. Yo.